Welcome to Sleep with Stories. Tonight, you are invited to rest, to let go, and to drift into a sanctuary of quiet. As you settle, take a slow breath in and out. If this place soothes you, please subscribe and leave a like. It helps bring more calm stories to your nights. Stay here a moment longer. Allow the quiet to become a companion. Close your eyes or soften your gaze and notice the rhythm of your breathing. With every exhale, the day's edges blur. Imagine a corridor of shelves that stretch into hush, a wing of the Whisperwood archive where dust moves like slow snow in lamplight. The air smells of old paper and beeswax polish. Each mote's lazy turning feels like a small benediction. Here, silence is generous and kind. It covers you like a warm shawl. Watch Abigail, a quiet guardian, as she turns brittle pages with slender, practiced fingers. Her movement is measured, like the gentle ticking of a distant clock, studying the room. The soft pool of gaslight makes the dust dance, and each whisper of paper becomes a lullaby. You follow her calm, the meticulous dip of her quill, the tiny bead of ink catching the lamp is glow, and in that following your mind slows. Your heartbeat softens, thoughts unspool like a ribbon finding the floor. The soft light of the gas lamp on her desk casts long, dancing shadows across the high vaulted ceiling, illuminating dust motes that pirouetted in the still air. Each movement she made was deliberate, a testament to decades spent among silent histories. Your gaze drifted over the vast expanse of the Whisperwood archive, an old stone library wing where time seemed to slow, almost to a halt. Shelves, carved from dark, sturdy oak, rose towards the shadowed reaches of the ceiling, crammed with ancient documents and artifacts. The faint, sweet scent of aged paper mingled with the subtle, comforting aroma of beeswax wood polish, a perfume unique to places where history was not just stored, but cherished. In this quiet sanctuary, the smallest sounds took on a profound significance. The gentle rustle of a turning page, the almost imperceptible click of a pen, the soft brush of cloth against leather. You settled into the quiet rhythm of Abigail Miller, 46, a woman whose life had been woven into the fabric of this very place. Her long, slender fingers, now delicately stained with the faint, inevitable smudges of ink. And time moved with unpracticed grace that spoke of countless hours spent in contemplation and careful categorization. Her soft brown hair, usually pulled back in a simple, practical bun, was today loosened slightly, a few wisps escaping to frame a face marked by a calm and contemplative gaze. She wore a simple, earth-tone dress, its fabric soft and worn, blending seamlessly with the muted hues of the archive itself. Her presence was a still point in a turning world, a silent guardian of forgotten stories. Abigail paused, her gaze fixed on a particularly faded entry in the document before her. It was a shipping manifest from the year 1888, detailing a consignment of woolen blankets and salted cod bound for a small coastal town. The ink, once a vibrant black, had mellowed to a sepia whisper, and some of the precise, elegant script had begun to blur at the edges, hinting at moisture damage from long ago. She ran a fingertip, calloused yet sensitive, along a line of numbers, her lips moving almost imperceptibly as she double-checked the tally against a separate invoice. The silence of the archive embraced her, a comforting presence that allowed for deep, undisturbed concentration. The velveteen-lined ledger, a substantial book bound in dark green, lay open beside her, its pages filled with Abigail's own precise and elegant hand. Each entry was a miniature work of art, dates and descriptions aligned with unwavering consistency. She dipped her quill into a small, heavy inkwell, the faint scratching sound a gentle counterpoint to the distant chime of the old grandfather clock in the main hall. A small bead of deep black ink clung to the tip, reflecting the lamplight before she carefully lowered it to the page. You watched as she meticulously transcribed the faded information, translating the fragile whispers of the past into the enduring record of the present. The process was slow, methodical, demanding patience and an unwavering eye for detail. Each letter formed was a small act of preservation, a bridge connecting centuries. The parchment before her, thin and crackling, felt almost alive in her hands, holding secrets whispered across the generations. She noted the shipper's name, Thornhill and Sons, and the recipient, the Saltmarsh General Store, along with the quantity of goods and the exact date of dispatch, October 17th, 1888. Her mind, a quiet repository of countless such details, briefly conjured an image of a bustling dockside, the air sharp with salt and industry, before returning to the quiet sanctity of her task. The gentle friction of the feather quill moving across the thick, cream-colored paper of the ledger was almost hypnotic. A small rhythmic scratching, punctuated by the soft plink as she redipped the quill, created a soothing auditory texture. When a page was fully transcribed, she would carefully slide a thin, acid-free sheet of tissue paper between the original document and the next, protecting its delicate surface from further wear. The soft rustle of this protective sheet was another tiny sound, almost a secret between her and the ancient text. Across the continent and across more than a century, a different kind of quiet industry was unfolding. The air in the Iron Spring Timber Works was a rich tapestry of scent, the sharp, clean aroma of freshly cut pine, the sweet, earthy perfume of cedar, and the subtle, comforting warmth of beeswax polish. It was a rustic artisan workshop, a place where raw wood was transformed into objects of beauty and utility. Tools, each with a story etched into its handle, hung neatly on pegboards, glinting softly under the illumination of a large, well-worn workbench. A single warm overhead lamp cast a focused pool of light, highlighting the intricate dance of wood and hand. You found yourself observing Benjamin Thompson, 39, his strong, weathered hands a testament to years of dedicated craftsmanship. His thick, dark brown hair, often falling into his eyes, was currently held back by a leather band, allowing him a clear view of the work before him. His posture was steady and deliberate, a calm strength radiating from him as he stood before the hand-carved lathe, its sturdy frame a dark silhouette against the workshop wall. Benjamin wore a practical denim apron, dusted with fine wood shavings, its pockets bulging with various measuring tools and pencils. He was a man of quiet dedication, his focus absolute. He had selected a block of maple earlier in the day, a piece known for its subtle grain and resilient nature. Now, it was securely mounted on the hand-carved lathe, a foot-powered woodworking machine that was itself a work of art. The rhythmic hum of the lathe, the deep resonating thrum filled the workshop, a focal point for Benjamin's methodical work. His foot worked the treadle with a steady, unhurried pace, setting the maple block into a slow, satisfying spin. Benjamin picked up a gouge, its razor-sharp edge gleaming under the lamp. His thumb ran along the smooth, cool steel, a brief, instinctive check of its keenness. He took a deep, centering breath, the scent of wood filling his lungs, and brought the chisel to the spinning timber. The initial contact was soft, tentative, a gentle kiss between steel and wood. A fine, continuous curl of pale maple, impossibly thin and delicate, peeled away from the block, spiraling down to join the growing pile of shavings on the floor. The sound was a symphony of precision, the consistent hum of the lathe, the gentle, almost whispering scrape of the chisel meeting timber, and the soft, almost imperceptible thwip as each shaving detached and fell. Benjamin's movements were fluid, an extension of the machine itself. His gaze was intense, fixed on the point of contact, his hands guiding the tool with minute adjustments. Responding to the grain of the wood, anticipating its resistance, he was not forcing the wood. He was coaxing it, revealing the cylindrical form hidden within. You observed the slow, deliberate act of shaping. Each pass of the chisel removed only a fraction of a millimeter, yet with each pass, the form became clearer, more defined. The rough block was slowly, patiently yielding its true shape, transforming into a perfectly balanced table leg, its smooth surface beginning to emerge from the raw timber. The workshop air, already thick with the scent of wood, grew heavier with the specific aroma of warm, freshly worked maple, a subtly sweet and slightly nutty note. Benjamin occasionally paused, stepping back to eye his work from different angles. Head ran his hand over the emerging curve, feeling for any imperfections, any subtle deviations from the intended form. His fingertips, rough from years of sanding and shaping, were surprisingly sensitive, able to detect the slightest unevenness that his eyes might miss. He then adjusted his stance, picked up a finer bladed chisel, and resumed the rhythmic dance of foot, hand, and wood. The lathe's hum picked up again, a steady, unwavering drone that was both powerful and calming. Back in 1888, Abigail carefully closed the velveteen-lined ledger. A faint imprint of the ornate brass clasp on her desk had formed on the leather cover over the years, a subtle testament to its constant use. She reached for another document from the stack beside her, a collection of letters from a traveling botanist. These were more personal, less structured than invoices, offering glimpses into a life spent observing the natural world. Their fragility was even more pronounced. The paper thin, the ink prone to flaking. She carefully opened the first letter, dated Springfield, May 12th, 1888. The handwriting was flowing, almost florid and slightly smudged in places, suggesting it had been written in haste or perhaps in damp conditions. The content spoke of a rare orchid discovered in a remote valley, its petals a surprising shade of deep violet, described with an almost poetic reverence. Abigail, ever the meticulous archivist, noted the date, the author's full name, and a brief description of the letter's primary subject in a separate, smaller notebook. Her movements were hushed, respectful of the intimate nature of the correspondence. The lamplight, now beginning to dim slightly as the evening progressed, cast longer, more ambiguous shadows across the high shelves. The occasional soft creak of the old building settling, a whisper of wind outside the thick stone walls, were the only sounds to punctuate the profound silence. Abigail's presence seemed to absorb the quiet, to become a part of it, her breathing shallow and even. She adjusted the lamp's wick with a small brass tool, coaxing a steadier, brighter flame from it, a tiny, self-contained act of illumination in the vastness of the archive. Her eyes, accustomed to deciphering faded script and minute details, moved slowly across the page, absorbing each word, each carefully crafted sentence. The botanist wrote of the solitude of his travels, the vastness of the untouched wilderness, and the profound beauty he found in the smallest leaf or most intricate blossom. He spoke of the quiet satisfaction of discovery, of being the first human eye to behold a particular shade of green or an unheard bird song. Abigail, in her own way, understood this quiet satisfaction, finding it in the act of bringing order to the forgotten, of illuminating the obscure. The smell of old paper intensified slightly as the lamp's warmth permeated the air, releasing the trapped sense of ink and time. Each letter, each invoice, each faded map was a small universe, and Abigail was its quiet cartographer. She imagined the botanist, perhaps sitting by a flickering campfire, scratching out these observations by the light of a portable lantern, the sounds of the forest his only companions. The contrast between his wild, itinerant life and her own still, contained existence was stark, yet both were united by a shared dedication to observation and documentation. Back in 2023, Benjamin carefully lowered his foot from the treadle. The lathe slowed, the maple table leg continuing its spin for a few more rotations before coming to a complete, silent stop. He wiped his hands on his apron, then picked up a piece of fine-grit sandpaper, its surface surprisingly smooth to the touch. The next stage of the process was sanding, an act of refinement that would bring out the true luster of the wood. He ran the sandpaper over the still warm surface of the maple. The initial passes produced a soft, whispery rasp, the sound of tiny abrasions smoothing away the last vestiges of tool marks. As the wood grew finer, the sound became less distinct, almost a silken caress. The fine dust that rose from the sanding process caught the light, creating a miniature galaxy of golden particles around the workbench. Benjamin worked with a circular motion, his strong hands applying even pressure, ensuring a uniform finish. The scent of warm maple, now infused with the faint, almost metallic tang of friction, permeated the workshop. Benjamin closed his eyes for a moment, letting the sensory experience wash over him. This was the heart of his craft, the transformation from raw material to finished product, each step a meditative ritual. He felt the subtle changes in the wood beneath his fingertips, the gradual softening, the emergence of a silken texture. He reached for a softer grade of sandpaper, then an even finer one, each progressively reducing the abrasive action, bringing the wood closer to its final, velvety smooth state. The repetitive motion, the steady rhythm of his hands moving over the wood, the soft, consistent sound of sanding, all combined to create a profound sense of calm. His mind was clear, focused entirely on the task, on the subtle interplay of pressure and texture. Once the sanding was complete, Benjamin gently unmounted the table leg from the lathe. He held it up to the light, turning it slowly, admiring the smooth, unbroken curve, the subtle variations in the maple's grain now fully revealed. The wood seemed to glow from within, reflecting the warm lamplight with a soft, inviting sheen. He placed it carefully on a padded surface, ready for the final step, the application of beeswax polish. He retrieved a small, circular tin from a shelf, its label faded but legible, Iron Spring Signature Beeswax Polish. The wax, a pale, creamy yellow, had a delicate, honeyed scent. He took a soft cloth, a piece of old flannel, and dipped it into the wax, picking up a small, pea-sized amount. With slow, deliberate strokes, Benjamin began to apply the polish to the maple table leg. The wax, initially a faint, almost invisible layer, slowly worked its way into the wood, deepening its color and enhancing its natural luster. The motion was circular, even covering every inch of the smooth surface. The scent of beeswax, warm and sweet, mingled with the lingering aroma of maple, creating a rich, comforting fragrance that filled the immediate space around him. The cloth moved with a gentle, consistent pressure, buffing the wax into the wood, bringing out a subtle shine. This was not a quick process, but a patient one, allowing the wood to absorb the nourishment, to reveal its deepest character. The surface, already smooth from the sanding, now took on a silken quality, a tactile pleasure that invited touch. Each stroke of the cloth was a final caress, a benediction on the completed work. He continued this process, meticulously polishing the entire length of the table leg, turning it in his hands to ensure no spot was missed. The faint, almost imperceptible squeak of the cloth against the wax wood was a small, satisfying sound, a confirmation of the work being done. When he was finished, the table leg was not just smooth, but truly radiant, a testament to the skill and dedication of the craftsman. It felt substantial, alive, radiating a quiet warmth. He set it down, its twin already waiting nearby, ready for assembly into a finished piece of furniture. The workshop, with its orderly chaos of tools and wood, now felt infused with the quiet satisfaction of a task well done. The rhythmic hum of the lathe had faded, replaced by the lingering scent of wood and wax, and the gentle quiet that follows focused creation. Back in the Whisperwood archive, Abigail had moved on to a different set of documents. These were property deeds, legal papers written in a starker, more formal hand. They spoke of boundaries and ownership, of parcels of land passed down through generations. She unfolded a particular large deed, its heavy parchment crackling faintly, revealing a hand-drawn map of a property boundary from the late 19th century. A small stream, its name illegible from fading, meandered through the center of the drawing, marked by delicate, wavy lines. Her magnifying glass, a small, silver-rimmed circle of polished glass, hovered over the intricate details of the map. She traced the faint lines of a fence line, the almost invisible dot marking an ancient oak tree, used as a landmark. Each detail, however small, held significance, connecting the abstract lines on the page to a tangible landscape that once existed, or perhaps still did, albeit changed by time. The soft click of the magnifying glass against the table, as she moved, it was a crisp sound in the silence. Abigail carefully noted the names of the grantors and grantees, the precise measurements of the land, and the date of the transaction, November 29th, 1888. She transcribed these details into her velveteen-lined ledger, her quill moving with its accustomed precision, forming elegant, consistent script. The act of transferring this information was more than just copying. It was an act of understanding, of weaving these individual threads into the larger tapestry of local history. She was a silent, unacknowledged historian, ensuring these fragments of the past would not be lost. The gas lamp on her desk began to flicker, a subtle warning that its fuel was nearing exhaustion. Abigail took note, but did not immediately rise. There was still a small section of the deed to transcribe, a particular clause regarding water rights that required careful reading. She leaned closer, her soft brown hair almost brushing the brittle parchment, her contemplative gaze unwavering. The faint, sweet scent of old paper seemed to rise to meet her, a gentle breath from the past. The rustle of the parchment as she carefully smoothed it, the faint scratching of her quill, the distant, muffled chime of the grandfather clock marking the slow passage of time. These were the sounds of the Whisperwood archive, the gentle metronome of Abigail's quiet dedication. The world outside, with its clamor and ceaseless motion, felt impossibly distant, a fading echo. Here, in this softly lit haven, only the whispers of history and the rhythm of careful preservation held sway. She completed the last entry for the water rights, her final flourish of the quill, a quiet statement of completion. The ink, fresh and black, stood in stark contrast to the faded script of the original document, a testament to the enduring power of meticulous record-keeping. She then carefully closed the deed, folding it along its original creases with practiced ease, before gently placing it into a protective archival box. The soft, almost imperceptible click of the box's lid was the final sound of her current task. As the gas lamp gave a final, faint flicker before dimming to a barely there glow, Abigail reached for a fresh candle, its wick already trimmed. With a strike of a match, a tiny flame blossomed, casting a warmer, more intimate light across her desk. The gentle crackle of the match, the subtle scent of sulfur, and then the steady, unwavering glow of the candle replaced the gas lamp, marking a soft transition in the evening. She would continue her work by candlelight, her focus undiminished. You watched as the single candle on Abigail's desk settled into a steady, soft glow, its flame a warm beacon in the vastness of the Whisperwood archive. The gas lamp's dimming had been a gentle transition, not an abrupt end, and the candlelight brought with it a different quality of silence, a deeper intimacy with the old stone walls and the countless stories they held. Shadows, once long and dancing, now softened, retreating into the high reaches of the vaulted ceiling, making the immediate workspace a cozy island of light. The subtle scent of melted beeswax, faint and sweet, began to mingle with the persistent aroma of aged paper and wood polish. Abigail, her soft brown hair catching the candle's warm light, leaned slightly closer to her desk. She picked up a small wooden pen rest, its surface worn smooth by decades of use, and carefully placed her quill upon it. Her long, slender fingers then reached for a stack of old journals, their leather bindings cracked and faded, their pages brittle with time. These were personal accounts, offering a more intimate window into the lives of those who had once walked the same earth. breathed the same air in this very year of 1888, she selected one bound in dark red leather, its spine marked with the faint impression of a title, now illegible. Opening it carefully, she revealed pages filled with a delicate, almost spidery script, written in a pale brown ink that spoke of an older formulation. It appeared to be the journal of a woman, a seamstress by the careful sketches of intricate lace patterns and fabric swatches pressed between some of the pages. The journal documented the slow passage of her days, the meticulous work of her craft, the changing seasons, and the quiet observations of her small town. Abigail's contemplative gaze softened further as she read, her eyes moving with unhurried precision across the faded script. She didn't transcribe this directly into the large velveteen-lined ledger. These journals required a different approach. Instead, she opened a separate, smaller notebook, bound in plain brown paper, and began to make brief, factual notes. She recorded the approximate period covered by the journal, the apparent author noting her profession, and any particularly unique details, a mention of a rare comet sighting, a new type of button brought by a traveling merchant, the arrival of migratory birds in spring. Each note was a delicate thread, connecting this individual life to the broader historical tapestry. The only sounds were the soft, almost imperceptible rustle of the turning pages of the journal, a sound like dried leaves skittering across a path, and the faint rhythmic tick-tock of the distant grandfather clock a steady heartbeat in the hushed archive. The candlelight cast a gentle, warm glow over Abigail's face, illuminating the subtle lines around her eyes, etched there not by worry, but by countless hours of quiet, intense focus. She paused, her finger tracing the outline of a pressed violet between two pages, its color still surprisingly vibrant, a tiny relic of a distant spring. The silence was profound, broken only by these small, meaningful sounds. Across the continent, in the present year of 2023, Benjamin had just placed the perfectly polished maple table leg on a padded workbench. The iron spring timber works was still imbued with the sweet, clean aroma of wood and beeswax, a comforting testament to the diligent work performed within its rustic walls. The single warm overhead lamp continued to cast its focused pool of light, making the polished wood gleam. He took a slow, deep breath, the rich scents filling his lungs, and then turned his attention to another section of the workshop. His strong, weathered hands reached for a stack of freshly cut cedar planks, their surfaces still rough from the saw, radiating a sharp, earthy fragrance. These were destined to become the top of a small chest, designed to complement the table legs he had just finished. He selected 2 planks, their green patterns pleasingly similar, and laid them side by side on a different, unblemished section of the workbench. Benjamin then picked up a hand plane, its polished steel blade glinting. He ran his thumb over the edge, feeling its exquisite sharpness. This was a tool for refining surfaces, for bringing a perfectly flat, smooth finish to raw timber. He positioned the first cedar plank, securing it gently with clamps, and then, with a steady, deliberate motion, pushed the plane along its length. The sound was distinct, a soft, sustained shwick as the blade met the wood, followed by the delicate, almost musical hiss of a thin, continuous shaving curling away. Each shaving, impossibly thin and translucent, fell in a gentle spiral to the workbench, revealing the smooth, unmarred surface of the cedar beneath. The scent of cedar, initially sharp, now mellowed, releasing its sweeter, more resinous notes into the air as the friction of the plane warmed the wood. Benjamin worked with an unhurried rhythm, each pass of the plane overlapping the last, ensuring an even and consistent removal of material. His posture was steady, his arms moving with a quiet, practiced grace. His thick, dark brown hair, still held back by the leather band, allowed him a clear, unobstructed view of the plane's progress. He was not rushing, but rather allowing the wood to reveal its inherent beauty, patiently coaxing it into its desired form. The rhythmic shriek hiss of the plane was a soothing, consistent sound, a metronome for the quiet transformation taking place. He paused after several passes, running his strong fingers over the plane's surface. His fingertips, rough from years of working with wood, were remarkably sensitive, able to detect the slightest unevenness that his eyes might miss. He felt for any high spots, any subtle imperfections, and then resumed his work, adjusting the plane's blade by a fraction of a millimeter to ensure absolute precision. The repetitive motion was meditative, clearing his mind of any distractions, allowing him to exist solely in the present moment, fully engaged with the tactile and sensory experience of his craft. Once the first plank was perfectly planed, he unclamped it and carefully placed it aside, then secured the second cedar plank. The process repeated itself, the same rhythmic shriek, hiss, the same gentle spiraling of wood shavings, the same release of warm cedar aroma. Benjamin's focus was absolute, his gaze unwavering as he brought each piece of wood to a state of smooth, precise readiness. The twin planks, once rough and indistinct, now lay beside each other, their surfaces uniform, their grain patterns subtly highlighted, awaiting the next stage of their transformation. The workshop hummed with a quiet, industrious peace, a haven of measured creation. Back in 1888, Abigail carefully closed the seamstress journal, placing a thin, acid-free bookmark within its pages to indicate where she had left off. She gently placed it back on the stack, its quiet stories now cataloged and preserved for future understanding. Her gaze then fell upon a small wooden box nestled among the other documents. It was made of dark, unvarnished oak, its surface smooth from countless years of handling. There was no latch, only a subtly carved finger groove on its lid. She lifted the lid with utmost care, revealing its contents, a collection of dried botanical specimens. Each delicate leaf, each flattened blossom, was carefully pressed and mounted on small, rectangular cards, labeled in a precise, elegant hand. These were not the vibrant sketches of the botanist's letters, but the actual fragile remnants of plants collected long ago. The air around the box, already scented with old paper and beeswax, now carried a faint, almost imperceptible whisper of dried earth and forgotten petals, a subtle ghost of an ancient garden. Abigail picked up one of the cards. It held a small pressed fern frond, its intricate pattern still perfectly preserved, the delicate veins visible against the cream-colored cardstock. The label beneath read, Esplenum trichomones, maidenhair. Spleenwort, collected October 1887, Blackwood Forest. She noted the Latin name, the common name, the location, and the date, transcribing these details into her small brown notebook. Her quill, now dipped in fresh ink, moved with its characteristic precision, each letter formed with deliberate care. The silence in the archive deepened, punctuated only by the soft rustle of the delicate paper cards and the almost inaudible tap of her quill on the notebook page. The candlelight cast long, wavering shadows across the high shelves, making the ancient volumes appear to breathe softly in the dim light. Abigail's work was a quiet meditation, a bridge between the ephemeral beauty of the natural world and the enduring structure of documentation. She imagined the careful hands that had once plucked this fern from the forest floor, the patience required to press it perfectly, preserving its fleeting form for eternity. She moved through the collection, card by card, each one a tiny window into a vanished ecosystem, a forgotten moment in time. There was a pressed forget-me-not, its tiny blue petals still discernible, a fragment of dried moss, surprisingly resilient, a single delicate seed pod, its contents long dispersed by the wind. Abigail's mind, a quiet repository of countless such details, briefly conjured an image of Blackwood Forest in autumn of 1887. The crisp air, the rustle of leaves underfoot, the sunlight filtering through the canopy before returning to the focused task of documentation. The delicate friction of the cards as she handled them was a barely there sound, a secret whispered between her and the plants. The meticulousness of her work was a testament to her profound respect for these fragile fragments of the past. Each movement was slow, deliberate, designed to prevent any further damage to the already ancient specimens. She carefully checked the mounting, ensuring each plant was securely, yet gently, affixed to its card. Occasionally, she would use a small, soft brush, no larger than a fingertip, to gently dust away any microscopic particles that had settled on the delicate leaves. This was a process of tender care, a silent dialogue with history. In 2023, Benjamin carefully positioned the 2 plain cedar planks on his workbench. He retrieved a measuring tape, its metal surface cool and flexible, and a finely sharpened pencil from the pocket of his denim apron. The next step was to prepare the planks for joining, a crucial stage in creating a sturdy, seamless chest top. He measured the exact length required for the chest, then marked the cut lines with precise, fine pencil strokes. His gaze was intense, his hands steady, ensuring every measurement was exact. He then reached for a handsaw, its blade a long, gleaming strip of tempered steel. He held it up, inspecting the sharpness of its teeth, then placed it carefully against the marked line on the first cedar plank. The initial few strokes were slow, almost tentative, guiding the blade into the wood, establishing the curve. The sound was a soft, steady SHNNK, a rhythmic rasp that quickly settled into a consistent, almost soothing cadence. As the saw bit deeper, the sound changed, becoming a more pronounced hush-hush, accompanied by the fine, pale sawdust that drifted down onto the workbench. The scent of fresh cedar intensified, filling the air with its clean, woody fragrance. Benjamin's movements were fluid, his body swaying slightly with the rhythm of the saw, allowing the tool to do its work with minimal force. He was not battling the wood, but collaborating with it, guiding the blade along the path of least resistance. He sawed with a steady, unhurried pace, his focus unwavering. Each stroke was deliberate, bringing the blade closer to completing the cut. The long, continuous strokes created a satisfying, almost hypnotic rhythm. When the saw finally broke through the other side of the plank, there was a faint, clean thunk, and the cut piece of cedar was separated, its edges perfectly straight and smooth. Benjamin carefully placed the offcut aside, then repeated the process with the second plank, ensuring both pieces were identical in length. Once the planks were cut, Benjamin prepared for the joining process. He retrieved a specialized hand plane designed for creating perfectly straight edges suitable for gluing. This was a joiner plane, heavier and longer than the smoothing plane, capable of shaving off infinitesimally small amounts of wood to achieve a perfectly flat, square edge. He secured one of the cut cedar planks vertically in a vise, its freshly sawn edge facing upwards. With the jointer plane, he began to make long, sweeping passes along the edge of the plank. The sound was a deep, resonant washage, a more substantial sound than the earlier planing, as the wider blade took a longer, more consistent shaving. The shavings themselves were wider, curling gracefully from the plane's mouth, adding to the growing pile of fragrant cedar on the floor. Benjamin's hands moved with a powerful, yet controlled, strength, guiding the heavy plane with unwavering precision. He worked each edge of both planks, carefully checking for squareness and flatness with a steel square. The rhythmic wash-off filled the workshop, a testament to the meticulous work of creating perfectly matched surfaces. He would hold the 2 planks together, feeling the subtle suction as their perfectly flat edges met, a sign of a strong, invisible bond about to be formed. This was the quiet art of joinery, where precision and patience transformed separate pieces into a seamless whole. The consistent, deliberate action brought a deep sense of calm, the kind of focused peace that comes from engaging fully with the craft. Back in 1888, Abigail carefully returned the botanical specimens to their small wooden box, ensuring each card was perfectly aligned. She closed the lid with a soft, almost imperceptible click, a gentle sealing of these preserved fragments of nature. The candle, still burning steadily, cast its intimate light across her workspace, its flame dancing softly in the still air. She reached for a new type of document, a collection of old maps, rolled and tied with faded ribbons. These were not property deeds, but rather navigational charts and topographical surveys of local waterways and forests, some dating back several decades. She untied the ribbon on one particular large, heavy map, its thick parchment unrolling with a faint, dry crackle, revealing a beautifully hand-drawn depiction of the Willow Creek River system. Intricate details, tiny fishing shacks, forgotten milpons, narrow tributaries, were rendered in fine ink, some lines colored with delicate watercolors, now muted by time. Her silver-rimmed magnifying glass, a familiar companion, once again hovered over the map. She traced the winding path of Willow Creek, observing the subtle changes in its course marked by different survey dates. She noted the small, meticulously drawn symbols for different types of vegetation, dense thickets of pine, scattered stands of oak, and marshy areas indicated by delicate clusters of reed-like strokes. Each detail, however minute, spoke of a landscape that had evolved over time, a river that had patiently carved its path through the earth. Abigail carefully noted the map's title, its survey date marked as April 1872, and the name of the cartographer into her small brown notebook. Her quill moved with its accustomed precision, translating the visual information into concise factual notes. The act of documenting these maps was an act of spatial history, allowing her to mentally trace the routes of long-ago travelers, the locations of vanished homesteads, and the subtle shifts in the natural world. The soft rustle of the parchment as she smoothed it on the desk was a gentle counterpoint to the quiet scratch of her quill. She spent a long, unhurried time with the maps, each one a unique perspective on the region. One depicted the contours of the Blackwood Forest, the same forest from which the fern specimen had been collected, its hills and valleys rendered with a delicate azure sheeting. Another showed the outline of a long-vanished logging road, a faint line disappearing into the dense woodland, a testament to past industries. Abigail, in her quiet corner of the archive, was an explorer of these forgotten landscapes, navigating them through the careful lines and faded colors of ancient charts. The silence of the archive embraced her, a comforting presence that allowed for deep, undisturbed concentration. The world outside, with its clamor and ceaseless motion, felt impossibly distant, a fading echo. Here, in this softly lit haven, only the whispers of history and the rhythm of careful preservation held sway. The faint, sweet scent of old paper seemed to rise to meet her, a gentle breath from the past, carrying with it the imagined scent of pine needles and damp earth from the maps. She meticulously folded the map along its original creases, a practiced movement that ensured its preservation, and tied it with a new acid-free ribbon. The soft rustle of the parchment, the gentle tying of the ribbon, and the quiet placement of the map back onto the pile were all performed with the same unhurried reverence. Her work was a continuous act of guardianship, a silent promise to keep these echoes of the past safe for future ears. In 2023, Benjamin now prepared to glue the two-seater planks together to form the chest top. He carefully laid them side by side on his workbench, admiring their perfectly matched edges. He then retrieved a bottle of wood glue, its milky white liquid viscous and ready. He applied a thin, even bead of glue along one of the planed edges, moving with a steady, unhurried hand. The glue had a faint, almost sweet chemical scent, a temporary addition to the prevailing aromas of wood and wax. He then brought the two planks together, pressing their glued edges firmly against each other. A small, almost invisible bead of glue squeezed out, a sign of a good bond. He wiped this excess away with a damp cloth, leaving the joint clean. Then he clamped the planks together using several bar clamps, their metal jaws slowly tightening, applying steady, even pressure across the entire length of the joint. The gentle click, click, click of the clamp ratchets was a soft, mechanical rhythm, ensuring the bond would be strong and true. Once clamped, the chest top was left to dry. Benjamin stepped back, his steady and deliberate posture indicating a moment of quiet satisfaction. The workshop, filled with the aroma of freshly cut pine, cedar, and the subtle notes of glue, now held a new nascent form. The drying process would take several hours, a time for the wood glue to cure and create an irreversible bond, turning two separate pieces into a unified whole. While the glue dried, Benjamin turned his attention to sharpening his tools. He took out a whetstone, a rectangular block of fine-grained abrasive material, and a small container of honing oil. He carefully applied a few drops of oil to the stone surface, creating a thin, reflective film. He then selected a chisel, its blade, though still sharp, benefiting from regular maintenance. He placed the chisel's bevel flat against the whetstone and, with a gentle, consistent pressure, began to draw the blade across the stone in a circular motion. The sound was a soft, whispering shish, 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 a subtle friction that indicated the delicate work of honing the edge. Benjamin's strong, weathered hands moved with practiced ease, maintaining the precise angle required to achieve a razor-sharp edge. He focused on the minute details, feeling the subtle resistance of the steel against the stone, listening to the changing nuances of the sound. He worked patiently, first on one side of the blade, then flipping it to address the burr that formed on the opposite side. The oil on the stone shimmered under the warm overhead lamp, reflecting the steady movement of his hands. The air grew faintly metallic with the scent of steel and oil, mingling with the deeper woody aromas. This was a meditative ritual, a quiet preparation for future work, ensuring that every cut would be clean and precise. Each sheesh was a step towards perfection, a testament to his dedication to his craft. Once the chisel was honed to a gleaming, razor-sharp edge, he wiped it clean with a soft cloth and carefully returned it to its designated spot on the pegboard. He then picked up another tool, perhaps a plain blade, and began the sharpening process anew, the same soft, rhythmic shayish, resuming, a calming, continuous sound in the tranquil workshop. The steady hum of existence, so often drowned out by the clamor of the world, took center stage here, inviting you to slow, to absorb, and to simply be. Back in 1888, Abigail concluded her work with the maps and turned to a collection of parish records. These were large, bound volumes, their covers a dull, dark brown, containing meticulously recorded births, marriages, and deaths from the local community. She opened one such volume, its heavy pages stiff, revealing columns of elegant script detailing the lives of people long past. The faint scent of aged paper in the Whisperwood archive deepened, as if the countless stories within these books were breathing out their histories. She focused on a specific period, the autumn of 1888, seeking out any entries that might correspond to names or families mentioned in the earlier invoices or letters. Her long, slender fingers, now delicately stained with the faint, inevitable smudges of ink and time, moved slowly down a column of names under the marriages section. The precise, elegant script, a different hand from her own, recorded each union with a quiet solemnity. The sound of the heavy page turning was a soft, almost weighty rustle, a deeper sound than the delicate parchment of the maps or journals. Abigail's calm and contemplative gaze moved from entry to entry, noting the dates, the names of the bride and groom, and the witnesses. Each entry was a small, self-contained story, a moment of profound significance for the individuals involved, now reduced to a line of careful script in a dusty ledger. She made a few brief notes in her small brown notebook, cross-referencing a name she had seen in a shipping manifest with a marriage record. This was the quiet detective work of an archivist, connecting disparate fragments of the past to build a fuller, more coherent picture. The candlelight flickered almost imperceptibly, casting long, wavering shadows across the page, making the names seem to dance in the dim light. The silence of the archive, broken only by the soft rustle of pages and the distant, muffled chime of the grandfather clock, was a comforting companion to her task. The gentle friction of her quill on the notebook page, a soft scratching sound, was a consistent presence. She paused occasionally, running a fingertip along the column of names, imagining the lives these individuals had led, the joys and sorrows they had experienced. Her presence was a still point in a turning world, a silent guardian of forgotten stories, ensuring that even the most mundane details of past lives were not lost to the relentless march of time. She closed the parish record book, its heavy cover falling with a soft thud that resonated slightly in the quiet archive. Her work for the evening was drawing to a close, the candle now burning lower, its flame a smaller, more intimate light. Abigail leaned back slightly in her chair, her gaze drifting over the meticulously organized shelves, each one a silent repository of countless histories. A profound sense of quiet satisfaction settled over her, the gentle peace that comes from a day spent in careful, meaningful work. The faint, sweet scent of aged paper and wood polish enveloped her, a comforting embrace from the past. The rhythmic tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the main hall seemed to slow, almost to a halt, as if acknowledging the day's gentle conclusion. Abigail remained in her chair for a few more moments, simply absorbing the quiet hum of existence in the archive, allowing the subtle beauty of the everyday to wash over her. The deep, restorative peace that permeated the space was an invitation, a soft lullaby promising serene slumber. In 2023, Benjamin carefully wiped the last whetstone clean and returned it to its place. The workshop was now filled with a quiet stillness, the sounds of sawing, planing, and sharpening having ceased. The chest top, clamped firmly, was slowly drying, its glue joint strengthening with each passing minute. He surveyed his workspace, his strong, weathered hands resting on the workbench, a sense of calm accomplishment radiating from him. He began the unhurried process of tidying up. He swept the fine cedar and maple shavings into a large bin, the soft rustle of the broom against the floor a gentle, rhythmic sound. The air, thick with the aroma of various woods and beeswax, began to feel cleaner, more settled. Each tool was carefully returned to its designated spot on the pegboard, their polished surfaces glinting softly under the warm overhead lamp. The organized chaos of the workshop was slowly giving way to an immaculate order, a final act of respect for his craft. Benjamin then took a soft, lint-free cloth and meticulously wiped on the surfaces of his workbench, removing any lingering dust or wood particles. The cloth moved with a gentle, consistent pressure, bringing out the rich, oiled sheen of the aged wood beneath. The act was repetitive, almost meditative, a final blessing upon his working space. The subtle scent of wood polish rose from the clean surfaces, mingling with the fainter aromas of fresh wood and the last vestiges of beeswax. He paused by the hand-carved lathe, its sturdy frame a dark silhouette, now silent. He ran a hand over its smooth, worn wood, a quiet acknowledgement of the machine that was so central to his craft. The rhythmic hum of the lathe, though absent now, seemed to echo in the stillness of the workshop, a memory of the day's creative output. His gaze lingered on the polished maple table leg, resting on its padded surface, a testament to the slow, deliberate act of shaping wood. The workshop, with its quiet order and the lingering, comforting scents of wood and wax, now felt infused with the deep satisfaction of a day well spent. The focused creation had given way to a profound sense of peace, a quiet completion. Benjamin stood for a moment longer, simply absorbing the tranquility, the subtle beauty of the everyday. The rhythm of his breath was slow and even, harmonizing with the quiet hum of existence that filled the Iron Spring timber works. It was a serene moment, a gentle passage into the calm embrace of rest. Abigail, having stepped out of the Whisperwood archive wing into the antechamber, found the air there slightly warmer, still but carrying the fainter, almost ghost-like scent of burning coal from a distant hearth. The grand entrance hall of the main library was now almost entirely dark, save for the slivers of moonlight that pierced the high, stained glass windows, casting fragmented, jewel-toned patterns on the polished marble floor. Her soft leather slippers made a barely audible whisper against the smooth stone as she moved towards the heavy main doors. She passed by a series of grand portraits hanging along the walls, depicting stern-faced benefactors and esteemed scholars of generations past. Their eyes, though painted, seemed to follow her with a quiet, knowing gaze, silent guardians of the vast knowledge contained within these walls. Abigail, with her calm and contemplative gaze, met their painted stares with a gentle acknowledgement, a silent communion with the history that permeated every stone and beam of the institution. Her fingers, long and slender, briefly touched a carved wooden banister as she descended a short, sweeping staircase that led to the ground floor. The wood, dark and polished, felt cool and smooth under her touch, bearing the subtle indentations of countless hands that had rested there over the centuries. Each step was unhurried, a gradual transition from the focused work of the archive to the quiet solitude of the late evening. Reaching the heavy oak doors that served as the library's main exit, Abigail paused, her hand resting on the cold, wrought iron handle. She listened for a moment, absorbing the profound silence of the grand building. The distant, rhythmic tick-tock of the grandfather clock, which had been a steady presence throughout her evening, now seemed to emanate from the very heart of the building, a gentle, unwavering pulse in the vast stillness. It was a comforting sound, a metronome for the quiet passage of time. With a gentle push, she opened one of the massive doors just enough to slip through, the ancient hinges groaning softly, a sound like an old friend stirring from sleep. The crisp, cool air of the October night met her, carrying with it the faint, earthy scent of damp leaves and the distant, smoky aroma of wood fires from the town. The sky above was a vast, inky canvas, studded with countless stars that glittered with an ethereal light, far brighter than any gas lamp. Abigail pulled her simple, earth-toned shawl tighter around her shoulders, the soft wool a comforting barrier against the evening chill. She began her slow walk down the cobbled path that led from the library to the street, her footsteps a soft, rhythmic tap-tap on the uneven stones. The path was lined with ancient oak trees, their bare branches etched like skeletal fingers against the starry sky, their fallen leaves rustling softly underfoot with each step, a delicate, papery sound. She noticed the subtle beauty of the moonlight on the dew-kissed grass, transforming each blade into a tiny, shimmering jewel. The quiet hum of existence, so often drowned out by the clamor of the day, was here a symphony of subtle sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the soft whisper of the wind through the tree branches. Her mind, no longer occupied with the intricate details of ancient invoices or botanical specimens, was free to wander, to absorb the serene beauty of the night. Her home, a modest cottage with a small, well-tended garden, was a short, unhurried walk away. As she approached, she saw the soft, inviting glow of a single lamp through the window, a warm beacon in the cool darkness. The thought of a warm cup of herbal tea and the quiet comfort of her own reading chair brought a gentle smile to her lips. The day's work, diligently performed and meticulously recorded, now receded, leaving behind a profound sense of quiet satisfaction. She reached her front door, its painted wood cool under her hand. The familiar scent of lavender and dried herbs, which always seemed to cling to her porch, greeted her. Turning the simple iron key in the lock, the mechanism clicked softly, a small domestic sound that marked the transition from the grand scale of the archive to the intimate scale of her home. Stepping inside, Abigail closed the door softly behind her, sealing out the night. The air within was warm and infused with the subtle, comforting scent of dried rose petals and simmering potpourri. She moved with unhurried grace to the small, round table in her sitting room, where a ceramic teapot, still warm, and a single teacup awaited her. Pouring the chamomile tea, its delicate steam rising in a thin spiral, she inhaled its soothing aroma. She settled into her favorite armchair, its faded upholstery soft and familiar. The quiet hum of existence here was the gentle warmth of the fire in the hearth. The soft purr of her cat, which had now appeared rubbing against her ankles, and the almost imperceptible ticking of a small mantel clock. She sipped her tea slowly, feeling the warmth spread through her, a soothing balm after her long, focused evening. The moonlight, now a bright silver stream, fell through the window, painting a square of light on the wooden floor. Abigail's gaze, calm and contemplative, rested on the dancing shadows cast by the fire, allowing her thoughts to drift. There was no urgency, no demand, only the gentle unfolding of the present moment. The detailed textures of her shawl, the comforting weight of the teacup, the rhythmic purr of her cat, each sensory input contributed to a profound sense of peace. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the quiet rhythm of her own breath, a steady, unwavering presence. The day, with its meticulous tasks and ancient whispers, had gently receded, making way for the serene embrace of the evening. The gentle echoes of forgotten moments, gleaned from the archive's depths, now served as a perfect lullaby, inviting her into deep and restorative sleep. The world outside could rush, but here, in the quietude of her cottage, time had gracefully slowed, offering a profound sense of calm. In the Iron Spring Timber Works, Benjamin's earlier tidying had brought an immaculate order to the workshop. The chest top, clamped firmly, was left to cure. The air, still rich with the lingering aroma of freshly cut pine, cedar, and the subtle, almost sweet notes of wood glue, now felt settled and calm. His steady and deliberate posture relaxed further as he surveyed the serene space, a testament to a day of dedicated craftsmanship. He walked slowly towards a different section of the workshop, where several finished pieces of furniture, awaiting their final wax or oil treatment, stood covered with large white canvas sheets. He gently pulled back one of these sheets, revealing a small, intricately carved jewelry box crafted from dark walnut. Its surface, though sanded smooth, had not yet received its protective finish, and the natural grain of the wood held a muted beauty. Benjamin retrieved a small tin of beeswax polish and a soft, lint-free cloth from a shelf above his workbench. The beeswax, solid and faintly fragrant, was slightly cool to the touch. He opened the tin, revealing the pale yellow wax within, its subtle, earthy scent mingling pleasantly with the other aromas of the workshop. He dipped a corner of the cloth into the wax, picking up a small, even amount. With a slow, circular motion, he began to apply the beeswax to the surface of the walnut jewelry box. The cloth moved with a gentle, consistent pressure, distributing a thin, even layer of wax. The wood, previously dull, immediately began to deepen in color, its rich, dark green patterns becoming more pronounced and vibrant. The scent of the beeswax, subtle at first, now intensified, releasing its warm, sweet fragrance into the air. The action was repetitive and meditative, a final, loving touch to a piece he had carefully brought into being. He worked meticulously, covering every surface of the box, the lid, the sides, the small, dovetailed drawers. The friction of the cloth against the wood created a barely perceptible, soft hush-hush sound, a gentle whisper of the finishing process. His strong, weathered hands moved with an almost rhythmic grace, ensuring no spot was missed, no area unevenly treated. His thick, dark brown hair, which sometimes fell into his eyes during more vigorous work, remained neatly tucked back by the leather band, allowing him an unobstructed view of the transformation taking place under his touch. After applying the wax, Benjamin took a clean section of the cloth and began to buff the surface. This was a slightly more energetic, but still gentle, action. The buffing brought out a deeper luster, a soft, natural sheen that seemed to glow from within the wood itself. The faint shea of the cloth rubbing against the now waxed walnut was a comforting sound, a testament to the meticulous care being taken. The surface, once merely smooth, now felt silken beneath his fingertips, a tangible reward for his patience and skill. He spent a long, unhurried time with the jewelry box, turning it over and around, buffing each side until it shone with a soft, warm glow. The light from the single overhead lamp caught the polished surface, reflecting a deep, rich luster that spoke of both craftsmanship and the natural beauty of the wood itself. The subtle warmth emanating from the friction of the buffing added another sensory layer to the experience, a gentle heat that permeated the cool air of the workshop. Once satisfied, Benjamin carefully placed the finished jewelry box back under its canvas cover, now a protected treasure, ready for its eventual owner. He then tidied away the beeswax tin and the cloths, returning them to their precise spots on the shelf. Every tool, every material had its place, contributing to the quiet harmony of the iron spring timberworks. His gaze fell upon the hand-carved lathe, its sturdy frame a dark, comforting presence in the workshop. Though silent, its form evoked the rhythmic hum it produced during operation, the steady, almost hypnotic vibration as it shaped wood. Benjamin walked over to it, running his strong fingers over the smooth, worn wood of its treadle, remembering the feel of his foot pushing down, the consistent turning of the spindle, the fine, continuous curl of wood shavings falling to the floor as a perfect cylindrical form emerged. It was a machine of patient creation, a partner in his craft. He then took a moment to step outside the workshop, into the crisp evening air. The moon, a pale crescent, was just beginning to rise over the distant tree line, casting a soft silver glow over the silent fields. The air carried the faint, earthy scent of damp soil and the distant, subtle aroma of pine from the surrounding forest. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cool, clean air, allowing the expansive quiet of the countryside to settle over him. He looked back at the iron spring timberworks, its rustic walls a familiar, comforting silhouette against the deepening twilight. The single warm overhead lamp, still burning inside, cast a soft, inviting glow from the windows, a beacon of diligent work and peaceful creation. The workshop, now quiet and still, was a sanctuary, a place where time seemed to slow, where the mundane became beautiful, and where the rhythmic click-clack of an antique clock or the subtle beauty of a hand-carved piece of wood became a gentle metronome for your thoughts. Benjamin stood for a few more moments, absorbing the profound tranquility of the evening, feeling the subtle echoes of the day's methodical work within him. The deep, restorative peace that filled the space was an invitation to quiet reflection, a gentle passage into the calm embrace of rest. The soft hum of existence, so often drowned out by the clamor of the world, took center stage here, inviting you to slow, to absorb, and to simply be. He then turned, a quiet smile on his face, and returned inside, closing the heavy workshop door with a soft thud, leaving the silent fields to the moon and stars. Benjamin's walk from the Iron Spring Timberworks to his small, tidy home was a familiar ritual, a gentle winding down of the day. The gravel path crunched softly under his boots, a rhythmic sound that blended with the subtle rustle of dry leaves in the hedgerows along the lane. The moon, now higher in the sky, cast long, stark shadows from the sparse trees, making the familiar landscape feel both serene and slightly ethereal. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the clean, earthy scent of damp soil in the distant, almost imperceptible aroma of pine from the nearby forest. He took deep, slow breaths, allowing the quiet vastness of the countryside to clear his mind, to release any lingering remnants of the day's focused concentration. The rhythmic pace of his footsteps was a steady beat, a metronome for his thoughts, which now drifted freely, unburdened by specific tasks or measurements. He passed a silent, dark pond, its surface reflecting the scattered stars like a broken mirror. A gentle breeze stirred the reeds at its edge, creating a soft, reedy wish, a barely audible sound that underscored the profound stillness of the night. Benjamin paused for a moment, his steady and deliberate posture relaxed, simply observing the subtle interplay of light and shadow, the quiet, uninterrupted life of the natural world around him. His home, a compact, well-maintained bungalow, stood nestled amongst a small cluster of mature oak trees, their sturdy silhouettes dark against the star-strewn sky. A single warm light emanated from his living room window, a welcoming glow that promised comfort and rest. A faint, sweet scent of wood smoke, carried on the breeze from a neighbor's hearth, mingled pleasantly with the cool night air. Reaching his front porch, Benjamin took a moment to brush any lingering sawdust from his denim apron before hanging it carefully on a peg beside the door. The simple act was a small ritual, a symbolic shedding of the day's labor. He then unlaced his sturdy work boots, placing them neatly on a mat, their leather still carrying the faint scent of the workshop. Stepping inside, the air was warm and quiet, infused with the subtle, comforting aroma of brewing herbal tea and a faint, pleasant hint of beeswax from the furniture polish he occasionally used in his own home. He walked to the small kitchen, where a ceramic kettle had just begun to hum softly on the stove, a gentle invitation to unwind. He poured hot water over a blend of chamomile and lavender, the steam rising in delicate tendrils, carrying a soothing floral scent. He settled into his favorite armchair, a sturdy, comfortable piece he had crafted himself years ago, its worn leather softened by countless evenings of quiet repose. The warmth of the teacup in his strong, weathered hands was comforting, a pleasant counterpoint to the cool evening air he had just left. He took a slow, deliberate sip, feeling the soothing warmth spread through him, a gentle release from the physical and mental exertion of the day. The only sounds were the soft rhythmic tick-tick of the antique wall clock in the corner, a smaller, less resonant version of the grandfather clock in Abigail's archive, and the almost imperceptible hiss of the cooling kettle on the stove. These were the quiet rhythms of home, the subtle hum of existence in its most comforting form. Benjamin's gaze, which during the day was intensely focused on the intricate grain of wood or the precise angle of a chisel, now soft drifting across the familiar patterns of the rug, the gentle sway of the curtains, and a slight draft. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the steady beat of his own heart, the slow, even rhythm of his breath. The images of wood shavings spiraling from the lathe, the smooth, satisfying feel of a planed surface, the rich aroma of cedar, all gently receded from his mind, replaced by a profound sense of calm. The demands of the day had gracefully stepped aside, leaving him in a state of tranquil contemplation. The subtle beauty of the everyday, which he so carefully observed and brought forth in his craft, now enveloped him entirely. The warmth of the tea, the quiet ticking of the clock, the comfort of his armchair, each element a gentle lullaby, guiding him towards the embrace of peaceful slumber. This was not an end, but a transition, a passage into deep and restorative sleep, where the gentle echoes of forgotten moments and the quiet satisfaction of a day well spent would be his perfect companion. The wonderfully mundane, observed through a lens of soothing detail, had done its work. If you enjoyed this peaceful journey, consider subscribing or leaving a like to drift into more serene narratives designed for restorative sleep.